So there you are, you've been rocking this little kid to sleep for ages and they're just starting to drift on down and you go to put them down and as soon as you get to that point, their eyes are wide awake again. Let's talk about sleep.
I'm so tired, I haven't slept a wink.
Hi there, my name's Christian Flotter. Thank you so much for joining me today as we talk about sleeping difficulties and these little guys. See, sleeping difficulties is one of those things that will drive a parent just absolutely bonkers in no time at all. A kid who doesn't sleep, it's always entertaining. But to understand sleeping difficulties, we need to have a bit of an understanding as to what are some of the normals when it comes to sleeping behaviors. So today we're going to be discussing that. We're going to talk a little bit about the different sleep durations kids might have, how long it might take the kids to fall asleep, and how many times should a child actually be waking up overnight? These are interesting questions because it can influence our management a little bit and it could tell us what might be going on. So let's go into the first one, talking about how long a child's sleep should be. See, as a newborn, we'd be expecting kids to be having up to nearly 17 hours sleep in a 24-hour period. But by the time they hit to 12-ish months, we're looking then at between 12 to 16 hours. So it does change quite a bit. And this delightful little textbook does tell us a couple of things. So at 1 week of age, 16 and a half hours, split between day and night as short little sleep cycles. By the time they're 12 months, 13.75 hours, with the majority of that happening overnight with still a couple of daytime naps. By the time they're 5 years of age, we're requiring around 11 hours per night, all throughout the night, and see you later daytime nap. By the time we're 18 years of age, where we're looking at around 8.25 hours for those kids at that stage. This wonderful textbook, this is giving us information as to the amount of hours that we should be looking at, and it does touch on something we talk about, sleep cycles. So as we're first developing, we actually don't have what we know as our circadian rhythms. We don't have a good appreciation of day and night. This is why newborn babies typically just sleep. But by the time we're reaching around 4 months of age, we're starting to release this wonderful little hormone. It's released from our pineal gland inside of our brain. It's called melatonin. And melatonin is the hormone that we utilize to help us fall asleep. 4 months of age, sleeping. Does this sound like a familiar time point for a lot of parents? We call it the 4-month sleep regression stage. And it is a wonderful time where a child is starting to redetermine the difference between day and night. They're starting to get greater duration at nighttime compared to daytime. And in fact, they're becoming more a case of sleeping at night. Now, sleeping at night though, it does require the ability to be able to fall asleep appropriately. So what is going on that could be impacting your child's ability to fall asleep if they are starting to produce this melatonin properly? Let's have a look at some of the things that can influence our ability to fall asleep. Your sleep environment is actually very important when it comes to ensuring adequate and appropriate sleeping behaviors in kids. Surprise, surprise. But there are certain things that we may not take into consideration. Temperature, for instance, is one of the important ones. We prefer to see lower temperatures. So we're looking between 18 to 21 degrees for an ideal sort of environment for a child to sleep. But we also use that for grown-ups. We need a drop in body temperature to be able to enter into a deep sleep. This is quite often why when it's a really hot night, like currently in Brisbane here in Australia, you wake up in the morning and feel unrefreshed. You've just not been able to get into a good deep sleeping pattern. So temperature plays an important part. We need to also appreciate screen use. Screen use prior to falling asleep can influence the sleep architecture. If you expose a young baby which is actually against Australian guidelines. We shouldn't do this because it can interfere with our ability to release melatonin and fall asleep. Furthermore, if we're watching something that's quite intense for a younger, maybe 3 to 5 year old, that could overwhelm their sensory systems and put them into a state of fight or flight. They're on edge, they're anxious. They're hearing every single little noise and they need mum or dad present to help calm them back down again. So this is not an ideal situation for them either. We might be feeding them the wrong kind of things. We could have had something that could upset the gut. We might have accidentally slipped in some caffeine. But these are all factors that we need to consider when we're looking at how we can keep this child sleeping nicely. Because you know what? If we don't have good sleep, there is actually evidence out there that demonstrates that it can have a negative impact on our growth and development. So we can see with this particular paper here, it does cover over some of the aspects that can be influenced with poor sleep behavior or sleep routines or sleep duration. We can see problems with memory function. We can see problems with language development. We can see problems with executive function. Executive function is quite an important one. That's our frontal and prefrontal cortices, the part of us that helps to regulate emotion and responsiveness to the environment around us. And more than that, it also can have an impact on global cognitive development. Now, that's just looking at the brain. It also touches on physical development. We require sleep to allow proper physical growth. We release the vast majority of our growth hormone at night time, which allows us to do the growing stuff that's important for kids to be doing. Now, if this is a risk of not sleeping well, what can we do to help improve our sleeping habits? How can we get kids sleeping well? Well, there are currently two, I'd say, kind of exclusive processes that people undergo when it comes to helping children sleep. We've got the one side that involves the cry it out style, and the other side that involves the let's go in and be supportive style. Let's have a look at some of the research with these ones. So this is a paper done by Dr. Wong et al., published in 2024, and it's titled An Approach to Common Sleep Presentations in Infants and Toddlers. Now, in this paper, and I'd like to read a particular section of it, they do discuss the two different approaches when it comes to looking after kids. So the first part, I say, the traditional approach, the goal is ultimately to establish consolidated overnight sleep using behavioral management strategies and structured routines to teach an infant to become self-regulated and independent in their sleep. This includes your things like controlled crying and sleep it out, and all cry it out kind of approaches. Now, the difficulty with this one, while they did find a 94% improvement in sleep quality, they don't have longitudinal research. They don't know what's going to happen down the track in regards to how this is going to impact the child in early childhood and into adolescence. The flip side to this one is the intuitive or responsive parenting approach. Now, this is about an attachment theory, being close to your child and allowing to provide that safe environment to allow them to grow and develop their regulational processes over an appropriate period of time. Now, the thing with this one is it does have good outcomes. However, it requires responsive parenting. So if we don't pick up on the cues appropriately, we may not be able to appropriately manage our child using this particular approach. So you can see, while both of these ones have pros and cons, it really comes down to the parent, the child, the family, the house, the whole environment that's going on there. And that's why it's so important when you have a child who's experiencing some sleeping difficulties to chat to your health professional. Talk to the sleep consultants, talk to your GPs, talk to people you know, and they may be able to point you in the right directions when it comes to improving your child's sleep. We're all here to be able to help you so your child can get the good sleep, grow up, be happy, be healthy, so that you can grow up, be happy and healthy. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and as always, if you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out and we can help as best we can. Talk to you next time.